Good evening, Greg here, burning both ends, burning on the back end of Wednesday, 11:14 p.m. Pacific. It is the 8th of August, 8/8/2018. So, last night I talked about my men's team meeting, and I just want to throw a shout out to my man Frank. He's been 20 years in the men's team as of today. So, how awesome is that? That's a commitment right there. So Frank, you're awesome. But what I want to get in today, so what's on my mind today is an interesting challenge that showed up at work, right? So, I'm a mechanical engineer, so, I design things at work, and we have an interesting structure at work that I'm not so thrilled about, right? So I design, right? Someone else fabricates, yet another person assembles, yet another person tests, and then it goes back to that assembler person to put into the final place, and then yet another person will then kind of commission, as it's called, to get it working in its final place. And the challenge with all those handoffs is just it's hard to track what happens, right, with the hardware. And anyway, so the challenge was something I designed. It seems not to be working, which of course is a shot to the ego, right? And because of the project and where we are, we're not going to have the time to really look at it and really understand why it's not working. We're at a point where we just want to, it's not working. It's in a vacuum chamber, so it's in a very clean environment, so it'll be very expensive to pull it out, to really debug it. Do I really think that we can get it to work? Yes, I really do. That's kind of how these things go. When you design for things like, kind of one of a kind, first of its kind, there is a lot to work out, right? It's very rare that you design something, put it together, and it just works right away the way you thought. That is very rare. I mean, even things like, think about the iPhone. I mean, I don't really know what's involved in their projects, in Apple's projects for putting together the next iPhone, but I can only imagine that testing is a huge piece to releasing the next iPhone. So, and unfortunately, the pace of our projects at work, we really don't have enough time to do proper testing, and so a lot of it is just kind of put it together. Yeah, it's and it seems to work. All right, get it in there. Anyway, and so this thing I designed is not working. It's a hit to my ego, my kind of past programming, and my mind wants to blame other people, and so I am doing my best to control that. That is something I am working on. So I'm controlling that, keeping that in my mind, and then on the outside, I'm doing my best to, to have humility and get right into problem solving. Right? I'm an engineer. The scientist is the customer. Let's help the customer. What does the customer need? They need a working system. So even if it means throwing away my design and putting something else in, that's what we're going to do. And actually, that's what we are doing. And so. And I have to admit, getting in that mode, it creates a lot of stress to keep that kind of blame thing going on. I have to admit, it's a lot easier and freer to get right into problem solving. But there is this underlying frustration that I'm never going to know truly if my idea really didn't work, if it was a bad idea, or if it just wasn't put together right, if it wasn't tested right. I mean, unfortunately with these kinds, there could be a million reasons, right? And my guess it's a little bit of everything. A little bit of things that I overlooked, a little bit of things that it wasn't maybe put together properly, a little bit of things that it wasn't fully tested. It's probably a bit from each step. But the big thing is, and I think about Gary Vee about failures and mistakes. These are opportunities to learn, and so that's also eating at me a little bit. Is that I'll never really learn what the problem was, and so therefore I'll never really know where I made a mistake. Is that a huge deal? No. It'd be nice to have that, right? So that way I can really pinpoint. Okay, that's the area that next time I do something like this, I should really focus on, or I should improve my game. But at the same time, we're going to solve the problem for the scientist. We're going to put something new in. We're going to do it for him. And at the end of the day, we're going to get this thing to work, which is the most important thing. So, But just there was definitely, this day was very frustrating for me, very challenging mentally. And since I am working on this is a new thing I'm working on. Excuse me. It definitely takes more effort right now to keep it inside and make sure that the things that I'm externalizing, is that a word? That might be a word, but I think you know what I mean. The things I'm kind of putting out to the world are positive things and problem solving things and getting into solutions, things like that. So there you go. That's been my day today. So that's one of the projects, but the other cool thing is the HPD project is rolling along real nice. We had a great meeting today, and this is kind of like what I've learned about where I work is sometimes the most important thing that I can do is bring two different people into the same room that normally wouldn't talk to each other to solve a problem together. And that's what happened today. And then something else that I do that is I'm going to start doing this a lot, and I love it, right? So we had an hour meeting today. This meeting I'm talking about. Definitely a little bit tense at times, but we pushed through. And at the end of the meeting, what I'm having people do is I have one person just kind of speak out loud what the solution is or what the next step is, what the actions are, and I record it on my phone. I do a little voice recording, and people kind of get a little bit weird about that. It's kind of funny. They're like, why? It's like and my whole thing is, what? I don't want to write it down. I don't want to rely on my memory to get this right. I want to hear it from you and have everyone in the room hear it, so that way we're all hearing it together, and this is the thing that I will then document and send to the team. And that's exactly what I did. So after 60 minutes of meeting, we ended up, I'm not even kidding, with 1 minute of audio that summed up what we decided to do, which is awesome. I think it just really shows how this work is done, and how much effort is created to produce such a kind of a tiny yet important result. And so then I went back to my desk. I listened to the audio several times, typed up the notes. I added some CAD images just to kind of draw it all together. And then I sent it out to the two key people for review before I then distribute it to the entire team. And I'm really just, the power of voice is just incredible. It's just amazing. And it's interesting to hear the audio, because I hear the one lead technician talk about what they're doing, and then I hear the lead scientist going, and then there was a few corrections in there. I mean, so it really works out perfectly. And I think that this is going to become kind of like my go-to thing, because it's so valuable. Because so many times in these meetings, and I don't know if you all have this experience, but you have a meeting, if no one is really dedicated to writing down actions, it's all up to everyone to remember. And I have to admit, where I work, so many people show up to meetings without notebooks, without pens and paper, and I'm like, how are you going to remember all this stuff we're talking about? I mean, I've got a pretty good memory, and I struggle if I don't write it down. And even if I write it down, I might write it down wrong. I mean, it's just incredible. It's amazing how this stuff works. And so anyway, so that was a really big win, I thought. And even though I get some weird looks and some like, you're really going to record this? And sometimes, like for example, actually at today's meeting, we recorded it, and it turned out that the lead tech and the scientist weren't really on the same page, and so we had to stop the recording. They had to iron out a few details, and then we had to do it again, which is perfect, right? I mean, that's exactly what we want. We don't want to walk out of that room after investing an hour and then think, let's see, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in that meeting, and they all contributed. So it wasn't like we had 2 people running the meeting and everyone else was just sitting there picking their nose. Everyone contributed to that meeting, so it was a great meeting in that regard. It would be such a shame if after an hour, so that's 6 man hours. Right, we're in Berkeley, so what are you, $200 an hour per person, $150 an hour per person. So you're easily at $1,000 for that meeting if you were to really find the cost of it. it'd be horrible if everyone left the room and we really didn't have a good understanding as to what the next steps were and what the clarity was. Because then what do you have to do? Then you have to somehow go back around and find out the missing details that, I mean, it almost might be impossible to do that when you think about it. I mean, to kind of recreate the thoughts individually, or, I mean, do you bring everyone back together for another half an hour to talk about, you know? And so the power of voice, the power of this little voice recording, this little innocent 1 minute recording that I got so much out of, just fantastic. So really cool, very cool. And then I do want to do a huge shout out to my brother Lee. My brother designed the new logo. You'll probably notice it as the thumbnail. The thumbnail for my videos now. So thank you, Lee. That's an awesome logo. I love it. And for some reason, the font that you sent, I couldn't get that to work. I'm not sure if it was my problem or the font's problem or both of our problems. But anyway, so I wasn't able to get that work. But maybe I'll try again. I was using this that pixel editor, that kind of free online graphics program. Got my bubbly water back, and you know sometimes bubbles come back. So I got my Mara lemon in there. I got 3 lemons. That's from dinner. I got one little lemon for me, one for each of my girls. My wife doesn't like lemon in her water, so that's why I got 3 in there right now. So. And let's see what else we got. Oh, yeah, so check out the description. There are some great links down there. My morning ents, so you'll also notice that I'm now entsing in the morning. My morning post is now on ents, and my evening post is on YouTube. So check out my morning ents. It's linked down below. And I did notice that for some reason clicking on the link in Internet Explorer, it didn't quite work. So you might have to cut and paste it into either a different browser or something like that. So just It definitely does work because I got it to work very easily in Chrome. I'm a big fan of Chrome, so check out my morning ents, and I think it's almost time to go to bed. I'm going to do a little bit of entsing after this post here, after I get it up there, and then hit the sack. So get some good rest. Tomorrow's Thursday. We're kind of getting on that tail end of the day. People are smelling the weekend. Time to kind of ramp up the game, push a little harder, and you know my advice for Friday. But Thursday is one of those interesting days because it's almost like the last day of the week to get something done in some regards. Because for some reason Friday is just regarded as like this throwaway day, which really kind of annoys me because it's like a full day to do stuff. So make Thursday rock and roll, light it up, inspire folks, do great things, and I will ent you in the morning.